Hello again, and welcome to Winning with the Wrangler at Dick Powell's Leadership Corner, brought to you by Earth, Wind, Fire, Water Training and Development, where our passion is building leaders of today and tomorrow. Leaders, the information on today's program was gathered from many different places and many different people. If you hear yourself in our conversation today, please remember it is not all about you. Today I'm going to really start looking at something that I believe that we as leaders need to spend more time with. And that's something called servant leadership. Many years ago, I picked up a book by Robert K. Greenleaf that was entitled Servant Leadership. And I pretty much started my investigative work on what it meant to be a leader and how to put that into place, not only in my life, but into the organizations which I had part of. Now, I'm going to really read you a piece by Stephen R. Covey. And Stephen did the preface, opening statements in this book after a 20-some year piece. Now, he wrote this in 2002. So I want you to know that it's past, but so is Stephen. But here I want you to read it. I want you to hear it because I believe it becomes so important in our world today. It starts off with the title of Islands of Excellence in a Sea of Mediocrity. I think we all understand and realize today that sometimes we just really don't get it. So as leaders, please listen to this. I believe it's that important. What if we could get model communities in this country and model institutions, schools, businesses, and governments units that would become islands of excellence in a sea of mediocrity? What if they could become models and then transport that they learn and become mentors to others so that the whole spirit of stewardship, of servant leadership, of working at empowerment process through structures and systems could take root and flourish? I honestly think that we could heal our country. I believe that the overwhelming majority of the people in this country, with the right kind of servant leadership at all levels, most important at the family level, could heal our country. Otherwise, these social problems will worsen and deepen until eventually they will overwhelm the economic machinery. And this will discombobulate everything. I love how you use that word. I have hope and confidence that we can. I have the same hope for people in every nation, for the principles of servant leadership are universal. I believe that hope is a moral imperative and that we keep our flame of hope burning by our own efforts. We become a big part of the solution. When I started spending time with this book many years ago, I have to tell you that it changed the way I started to think about leadership. You see, I had been brought up in the might makes right world where leadership was really the person with the big stick. And the leader, whoever, said the rules were that you had to abide by them with no consequence of thought process. As I learned and moved through it, I worked with an organization that I was involved in and I was an employee at, and they wanted to bring on a leadership piece into their organization. And I was asked to be a part of it. Because I had a background in scouting where leadership is really put onto young people at a very young age, and that part of leadership starts to really sink in, that it really belongs to accountability and responsibility. As I looked at this, and I had to say in 2002, Stephen was well within his opportunity to really speak to this. It's been many years since then. This is right now as we're doing this recording, this television program. It's 2019. And you think to yourself, gee, have we moved ahead or have we not? You see this thing of these accountability pieces really start to make sense. There was a piece in here in Stephen's opening monologue in the foreword for the book that he quoted Gandhi. And I have to tell you, when I spent some more time with Gandhi, as servant leadership, I started to really look at how I was working within organizations and within my own family. But when I read these things, I have to tell you, it kind of set me back on my haunches just a little bit. The first thing that Gandhi said was he had 7 things that will destroy us. You see, he was right on the money. The 7 things that Gandhi said that would destroy us, the human race, individuals. First was wealth without work. And that means, all these people that say, you owe me, and they want to sit and do nothing without working. Pleasure without conscience. And boy, are we seeing that now. This thing of pleasure without conscience. It's been in the paper, it's been in the news. I want you to think about that one. Everything we do has some responsibility and accountability hooked to it. The third one is knowledge without character. What he really meant by that was knowledge is all well and good, but if you're not sharing it, your character is lacking. Commerce without morality. And what he was talking about here is people who sell things that know that they don't work. There's people who make money off of other people who sell things that don't work and are no good. Science without humanity. Oh boy. There are some things that just because we can, you have to ask yourself, should we? Just because we can, should we? Science is a great thing. I'm all about it because I spent most of my life living it. But you have to also put towards it, what does it bring with it? Consequences. Worship without sacrifice. Now, he doesn't mean burnt offerings. He does mean, what are you doing? If you say that you're worshiping something, what are you doing? Are you living by those practices, those values, those morals? In politics without principle. You see, I believe you can have politics and you can have discussions, you can do things, you can lead people with a moral bent. I truly believe you can. But when Gandhi puts these out in front of you and we start talking about servant leadership, I want you to really start thinking to yourself, how are we doing as a country today? And we as leaders, where do we fall within that? You see, this is what is really the important piece. You see, servant leadership boils down to moral authority. And what Stephen has said is that that's your conscience. He says there's 4 dimensions to moral authority, or your conscience. And I have to tell you that these meant a lot as I started using them, both in my personal as well as my organizational background. The first one that he said here is the essence of moral authority or conscience is sacrifice. He said this sacrifice can take many forms as it manifests itself in 4 dimensions of our lives. Making physical and economic sacrifices, that's your body. Cultivating an open, inquisitive mind and purging ourselves of prejudices, the mind. Showing deep respect and love for others, the heart. And subordinating our will to a higher will for the greater good, the spirit. Now, He went on to say that the second one was conscience inspires us to become part of a worthy our cause and of our commitment. Worthy cause of our commitment. In other words, it should inspire us to take and do something that's bigger than we are and be involved with that type of opportunity. He went on and said that the third one was conscience teaches us that the ends and means are inseparable. And what he means by that, there is an accountability factor in everything we do. Okay? And number 4, he said conscience introduces us into the world of relationships. Some good, some not so good. The thing about being a person of servant leadership really means that you're involved and you're building relationships with people all around you, not just the ones that you like or do or like or something else, but really it means making relationships with people sometimes you don't even care for. Now, I have to tell you that this book has stimulated many different people to many different things. But if I was going to teach a class on how to be a leader, on how to be a good leader, how to be a great leader, how to be a leader, I would tell you first you need to serve others before you serve yourself. You see, that's really where this all pulls down to be. Now, in this book, The Servant Leadership, A Journey into the Nature and Legitimate Power and Greatness by Robert K. Greenleaf, here's what I want to tell you. That some of these chapters are so important to us as leaders that we need to spend more time with it than just looking at it. I'm going to encourage you to find someone who is willing to be a coach or mentor and mentor you through this. That's how important it is. Now, we at Earth, Wind, Fire, Water Training Development believe in this so much that we do a course on it just like they do. You see, when we start talking about servant leadership in business or education or foundations or in churches, we will oftentimes start to ruffle some feathers. When I taught this at a church location, I have to tell you, I ruffled enough feathers that I was asked not to ever do it again. Isn't it amazing how that little piece, the word servant leadership, set them back on their ears so far that they were almost afraid to allow me to speak. I spend a lot of time in this, and I know that you're probably thinking to yourself, well, Dick's got a bent on this. Well, I do, because I believe personal accountability, personal leadership, really stems to the worlds of relations. And as we have built relationship pieces, that's really where we start to say to ourselves, who are we as leaders? Now, many times I've asked people the question, what's being a leader mean to you? And I get some really unnerving answers from time to time. They tell me the leader is the one who knows everything and makes all the decisions. And that would not be correct. Sometimes I hear that, well, they're the leader. They got the job, and that, how did they? Well, is leadership a job or is a way of life? I think that's what we're really talking about here. You see, servant leadership is not a job title. It's not letters behind your name. It doesn't mean that you've gone to college and got some letters before or after your name. It doesn't mean that just because you've worked in a position for a number of years, all of a sudden somebody passes away and you get moved into it. And it's surely not the title that's on your door or on your letterhead. You see, the best leaders and most accomplished leaders I have met in my entire life are people who led from the bottom, led from the middle, and didn't even know they were leaders. It was amazing to me when I met a young person one time that really was running an organization and leading it from way down at the bottom. It was wonderful because when I thought about it, he was actually providing information to the people at the top. Now, that told me that their leadership form was in good working order because they were listening to all the different people within the organization. They were making decisions based on their vision and looking through their mission. And that meant that there was decisions being made not just for the shareholders, but for the individuals, the employees, as well as the employees' families. You see, when you own your own company, when you're a leader of your own organization, it's not just you and your family that you're going to be concerned about. You need to be concerned about everybody that comes in contact with you, whether it's a service or it's a product, all the people that are involved putting that together. Now, even though people say, well, Dick, you and your wife just work for yourselves. Well, we do now, but we really don't. You see, when we write a book, it takes many different people to put that together. When we do a television program, just like we're on today, it really takes more than just one person sitting in front of the camera. Someone needs to take and help you put all the parts and pieces together so that you're ready to promote and you're ready to also speak. That's why when I was asked the other day by a young pastor, he said he was struggling, and he was struggling working with his organization, working with his congregation, and I handed him this book. And I had to buy a new one, by the way, because the last one I had given away, and now I have to buy another one. This one's the anniversary edition, and I have to tell you, I'm just always excited to share this with anyone who wants to spend a moment and really start to dig into their leadership style. Why are they called to leadership? Who's called to leadership? What does leadership mean? Servant leadership really boils down to a very simple thing. We serve others before we serve ourselves. And that means willing to sometimes get your hands dirty. There was a time when I was working with my wife, and while we were out at a large Boy Scout camp, and we were in charge of the dining hall. It seemed like a simple process. The young people who were working with us were dedicated in making sure that everyone got fed on time and a good quality meal. The situation was, though, is that from time to time, those young people were really busy. And one time they found me in scrubbing toilets. And I'll never forget the young person who said to me, Mr. Powell, well, that's somebody else's job. I said, well, it might be somebody else's job, but it needs doing right now, and I'm the one free and has time to do it. So I'm doing the scrubbing. It was hard for them to understand, but I believe at the end of the summer, they all really got to understand this thing called servant leadership. It's about who and what we are and what we're willing to do, and how you're living your life. You see, the title is one thing, but it's the person who is working the title, the person who is living up to that title, that really is going to make the difference. Servant leadership isn't about standing at the front and yelling orders. Servant leadership is helping those look and find out what needs done, how it needs done, and pitching in and helping. And sometimes, the each one teach one effect with coaching and mentoring really starts to come to play. So you see, servant leadership is made up of a lot of different things. And I believe it's made up of the willingness to have ongoing learning, the willingness to help others who need it when it's needed. I believe it's the willingness to really put aside the title and get to work. You see, I really believe so heartedly, so much into this world that when I start talking about leadership, many times on a Sunday, I'll take and pick up this other book, the Maxwell Leadership Bible, because it is full of opportunities and ways to learn about leadership the way I really can put it forth so you can understand it. Let's look at a couple things and then we'll come back to this. I want to spend just a couple seconds over on what I call attitude. You see, servant leadership is really an attitude as well as a way of life because the two have to go together. And you need to understand that attitudes attitudes are really, really this. Okay, you ready? Leaders, our attitude will determine our approach to how we live our life. Whether it's positive or negative, I'm going to tell you, it's going to rub off everywhere that you turn, everyone that you have contact with, from being at home with your significant other, your children, whoever they may be. It could be that you only have a pet dog or a cat, and it's going to rub off on them, all the way up to everyone you take and meet that day. Our attitude will determine our approach to life, whether our glass is half full, half empty, or what it may be. Our attitude will determine our relationships with people. I'm going to tell you what, it's hard to like other people if you don't like yourself. But that attitude really starts to come out no matter where you go. I was in line the other day and of a grocery store, and they were busy, and we were backed up, and we were waiting quite a while. And this lady behind me, her attitude was, just hurry up and get it going. She kept smacking me with the cart, and I just kind of, didn't say much. But after a while, I have to tell you, it started to get to me. But her attitude was everyone around her needed to stop what they were doing and take care of her, and she didn't need to wait in line like the rest of us. And that attitude started to rub off on other people that were near her. So, you know me, I started whistling, but happy days are here again. And I'm going to tell you what, it's your attitude that will build your relationship. Now, this one is a fact, so write it down. Our attitude is often the difference between our personal life, failure, and success. Many times we stick in our brain so much that we can't do this, we can't do that, and something else is going to fail, and blah, 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 and it all gets wound up. And so what? It happens. Henry Ford says, whether you believe it will or you believe it won't, both will be true. There you go. Now, our attitude will also affect the outcome of a task. How many times have you been doing something and the task seemed to be very simple, but it turned on you and your mind went to all the negative pieces and it just kept getting worse? Or your mind went to a positive place and you started adding positive solutions to that thing that wasn't going quite well, and it all started to change around. Big difference. Now, our attitude can change our problems into opportunities. This is one where I'm going to encourage you, when you face a problem, that you are going to look for positive solutions, because that change of attitude will bring on a different wave of thought process. You see, there's that servant leadership stuff coming in there, isn't it? And our attitude can bring positivity into our lives. Every day I run into people who seem to be woe is me, and they've got a dark cloud hanging over them, and they spend their entire life saying all the things that's terrible to them, that's terrible happened to them, and on and on. But it's their attitude. Now, as servant leaders, these are things we can have control over. You see, every day as servant leaders, we have a choice about our attitude. And we need to understand that our attitude will be telegraphed to everyone around us. So if you walk into the office or your place of business or wherever, and you've got a bad attitude, I guarantee it's going to rub off on people around you, and all of a sudden you've got a room full of bad attitude. And that is not a good thing. And of course, then you get somebody that's crazy like me who walks in and sings a song or whistling. You know, I remember back in my younger days, I had a boss who was just Mr. Negative. And I walked in one day whistling a tune, and he pulled me in the office and wrote me up, told me that I was too happy, and I was making people uneasy because I was too happy at my job. Well, he didn't work there very long after that, and I was pretty thankful. But as I got his job, I surely initiated that smiling opportunity. You see, that attitude that we project starts to happen in other people. Today's opportunity that we've talked about, servant leadership, has been one of the most important pieces that I'm encouraging you to spend some time with. I want you to remember what Gandhi said about the 7 things that would destroy you as well as our country. They were wealth without work, pleasure without a conscience, knowledge without character, commerce without morality, science without humanity, worship without sacrifice, and politics without principle. I hope you kind of stuck those somewhere in your thought process and you thought to yourself, wow, does that really tell us what our world has come to, especially here in the United States? Might be something to think about, something to really start to think about natural authority and moral authority and how that really works, and the parts and pieces that are put into place there. You see, this whole piece here that we've been talking about today, that I've been trying to share with you, this opportunity that we're called to be leaders. We're called to really understand and work with others before we work with ourselves. Now, leaders must have more of an armor of confidence in facing the unknown, more than those who accept their leadership. There are so many pieces in here that I just can't even cover them all so quickly in 30 minutes. But I'm going to encourage you to grab a hold of this and do it yourself. You see, to me, that's really the mark of a great leader. The willingness to accept the responsibility, the willingness and the challenge to build themselves, the ongoing continuous learning part, and the ongoing continuous of sharing what they learn. I'm encouraging you very heartily to pick up Servant Leadership, A Journey into the Nature of Legitimate Power and Greatness by Robert K. Greenleaf. And no, I get no kickback from them, just so you know. This is just a great book, and I'm going to encourage you to do that. I see our time is running short as usual, and on behalf of myself, Dick Powell, and the whole Leadership Corner team, I want to say thank you for being a part of today's program. Our hope is that you've received a nugget of wisdom and guidance that will help you build your leadership ability. Now, if you have any questions or comments on today's program, please don't hesitate. Give me a call at 727-422-1833. Send me an email, dick@ewfw.org. Go to the website, spend some time. There's a place to send me a message there. Go to www.ewfw.org. And when you're ready to have me come and put on a leadership seminar at your location for your group, please give us a call, and I'm going to encourage you to do it so quickly because we book up quite fast over the year. Now, I'm going to leave you with this thought. It's D.W. the Wrangler saying, ride hard, ride fast.